So I think we're about to go and invite people to ask some questions. I'm just going to have a wee look at the chat box there to see if there are. I know that a few of you have been asking about things getting sent out, and Richard has replied to say that he'll send out links to the reading material, etc. But if you have any questions, if you'd like to pop them in the box now, then Claire's going to facilitate a Q&A discussion.
I'm just looking through. I think, yes, I think we have answered all of the questions which have arisen as we've gone along. But yes.
I'll come in if that's okay. Can you hear me?
Please do, Richard.
Yeah, there was a really good question actually about Thomas and Emily about we've got to be careful. It's a really important point if we're discussing any of these controversial issues. I suppose my view with anything in education, if you're well researched and you know what you're teaching, then it's going to make for a better teaching experience. And I think about the iceberg model, where the bit you see above the water is the bit you teach, the 10-15% is the bit you're delivering, but it's the sort of 80% behind the scenes that you're doing. Making those judgment calls about how you pitch it, whether there'll be particular learners, young people that might struggle with it a little bit, and maybe even involving the family members. If you're going to do something like this over a medium-term project, and even if it's not COVID, if you're looking at things like water purification and the impact maybe in famine in countries or other natural disasters, then there could be potentially people worried about that, children in your class, there could be family members that could be impacted by it. So I would encourage you to involve the family members and the carers and have those open and honest discussions. And the analogy I always give is or the comparison is to early years design technology, where often in an early years nursery setting, there might be real tools available. There might be saws, there might be hammers available like that for the children to use. A colleague of mine was doing some of that with one of her children recently and actually put a picture up, I think, on Twitter, and was very nervous about giving this 4 or 5-year-old some real tools, but trusted them and allowed them to learn it. So I suppose it's approaching these topics sensitively, making sure you're well informed about them as well. And if you can do it well, payoff then is that we don't end up with people possibly who make slightly unusual health choices, such as taking malarial quinine when they think that it's going to help them with COVID, or possibly suggesting that we inject things like domestos into our lungs to help us get better from COVID or to prevent COVID. So that idea of going at a young age and respecting the children and trusting them, whilst taking into consideration all those concerns that everyone's got. Absolutely.
Thank you. Just seeing, yes, we're seeing a bit about this. That there's the document from Oxfam to help teachers embed sustainable development goals in their teaching. Meryl, you had a case study in that. Would you like to talk a little bit about what it was you did that was included in the Oxfam document?
Start video. Hello.
Hello.
So I have just a while ago, about 4 years ago, I was really concerned about the English national curriculum not including enough about environmental education and not giving the kids enough of a grounding in understanding the world around them to make a difference themselves and to appreciate some of the issues that are facing them in the future, such as climate change and things. So I stumbled across the global goals, the SDGs, of my own accord, started integrating them in my lessons, and it's really, really easy to do that. So if you're based in England, you are pretty much encouraged, if you're working in a state school, you have to follow the national curriculum. There's very little environmental education. So all I did as a teacher in a state school who needs to maintain their job, I started integrating the SDGs in any topic I was teaching. So if I was teaching about the digestive system, I'd link it to SDG 3 and start talking about some of the ways that we need to think about health around the world. So started thinking about global citizenship. And And then I found Julie and Bren's fantastic resources. Couldn't speak highly enough of them. Are from Practical Action. I've even been setting it as work from home. My year 5s have just done the Ditch to the Dirt experiments and loved it. The feedback from parents and kids was hugely, positive. So the case study in the Oxfam was really just the fact that I've started linking the SDGs into my lessons, and I'm using sort of project-based learning to encourage pupils to really embrace the fact that we've got global issues that need addressing, and we can solve those using STEM, but also the fact that we're part of a global, a planet, and that we need to start thinking about what's happening elsewhere around the world, which is why Practical Action, then, they have links to what's happening in Darfur, or, where clean water is an issue, or where there's sanitation is an issue. And as I say, my little journey has been amazing, hugely positive, culminating in the fact that I've just come back from Ethiopia on a British Classrooms Connecting Classroom, British Council Connecting Classrooms project. And we were doing in Addis Ababa and in Northumberland, we were doing 2 Practical Action STEM activities. One was Ditch the Dirt, and the other was the Wind Power Challenge. So, cheap and cheerful to get going. You could easily do those in any country, and a real experience. And so it's only the teachers that travel, but we get to bring people from Ethiopia into our classrooms, and then we get to go and visit them in their classrooms. So I really, I know that obviously the international travel might be a bit of an issue at the moment, but I'm really hoping that that scheme carries on going. Even if it doesn't, at the moment, you can apply for a Connecting Classrooms grant. They have quite a lot of money going, and would love more applicants. And they are doing virtual, helping schools do virtual link-ups to try and promote this, this is a global issue, let's address it. It doesn't have to be anything to do with the disease or spread of disease. It can be about plastics in the ocean. It can be about growing your own food. It can be anything. They're really flexible. So yeah, I'd say for me, it's only ever been a positive journey. Embracing, the global goals was just the start of it, and it's got bigger and better since then. Sorry, I can talk for ages.
No, that's really good to hear, actually. And just as you're talking, well, you took the words right out of my mouth. As far as the British Council programme is concerned, Meryl, so thank you for mentioning that, because I think that's very much about taking the learning from the classroom and bringing it to life. And so the British Council Connecting Classrooms programme is still very much open, as Meryl said. At the moment, obviously reciprocal visits will be tricky, but there's still funding there for that.
Funding
there's the potential to go probably this time next year.
And compared to many other grant applications and things that I've done, it's actually not that onerous. They're really they bend over backwards to help you.
Yep. So thank you for saying that and for sharing your experience. That's really helpful. Thank you.
Can I just say as well, Mel, that was a really interesting point about how you started with, about how you fit the SDGs in when the curriculum is, in England's a bit more prescriptive. Scotland, we've got the benefit of having CFE, which is quite open, and broad general education and early phases at secondary school. But that's almost a disadvantage because people aren't really sure what they really should be doing. So I would encourage people to have a bit of confidence in yourself as a practitioner, engage in the goals and see how they might work and how they might fit. And even though inspection frameworks in England with Ofsted and in Scotland with the HMI are a little bit terrifying, what they're ultimately looking for is quality learning for the young people in front of you. So if you do justify it and you do think it's going to work, and the experiment that Daisy did, I've seen similar things done where it's been a bit of a sort of kind of a tenuous link to something. So there's a video online you can find from quite a number of years ago from Teachers TV called Alien Soup, where the teacher teaches a lovely lesson and they try and separate out these materials. It hasn't really got a real life context to it. It's a nice activity for them to do. So this link to the SDGs makes learning real, and I think that's one of the real advantages of taking this particular approach. And the kids learners of any age, 5 through to 95, they'll respond well because it's got that real life application.
Okay,
Thank you.
Alexandra White has just asked.
As you were saying about, oh, sorry.
No,
Sorry.
sorry.
Alexandra White just asked a question about the SDGs and if it was supported by my department or taken on by them.
Yeah.
So what happened in my school was I started teaching with them. I'm head of department, so I could just get everybody in my department to teach with them as well. They loved them. The head teacher was a little bit skeptical, said, "Are you still teaching the national curriculum?" And I said, "Absolutely." And so she saw what I was doing in my classroom, and now she's rolled out the SDGs across the whole school so that all departments are encouraged to pick up and link to the SDGs where possible. They're up in every classroom, the kids know them, most of them can name all 17 off the top of their heads. So I'd have to say it's been a wholeheartedly well received. And I think even if you're worried about school inspectors coming in at any time, apparently they are looking out for this kind of thing because it shows that the learning's not just about learning the national curriculum. I think we have to show that we're doing more than that, but that's not the reason I started doing it in the first place.
It's also showing the values of the establishment, isn't it? What everybody is buying into and what everybody cares about and what's important. And yeah, that's fabulous. Thank you, Meryl. Sorry, Daisy, did you want to say something there?
Yeah, it was just how you were saying about things being relevant. And so the John Snow example that you used, you know, we actually learned that in one of our epidemiology lessons in university. So it is still relevant. And one of the equations we learned to do might be actually quite a useful one. It's really simple. When you were speaking about, so it's the odds ratio. It's a really simple equation that you can do. So it's cases. I don't know if you can see it. If you Google odds ratio, so basically it's unexposed cases and controls, and it's basically you just times, you do A over C. I don't know if you can see it, hopefully, but it's A divided by C over B, and it's a simple way to sort of measure the odds of someone getting a disease, and it's really simple. So you could do it with something really simple. You could do it with coronavirus. But it's yeah, we use that in university, so it's not, you know, using the John Snow example is actually relevant, and it still comes up because it's such a good case study in epidemiology.
And my experience of teaching in primary, I've been in some schools recently where we were talking about, I got chatting to this P7 class about metacognition. And the teacher said they kept going on and they were going home and telling their parents about metacognition. If you're teaching a lesson and you say to these children, we're going to be learning about epidemiology, and I'm going to show you some things that are studied in university. No 9-year-old or 12 or 13-year-old is going to sort of respond badly to that. They're going to think, oh, really? You're pushing us and you're testing us here. And often when we teach percentages, so I said, don't forget mathematics, but when we teach percentages, we look at fractions. We look at pizzas, don't we? Let's look at a fraction of a pizza. But actually, do you really need to know? Because you do. You want a new quarter of a pizza if you're getting a quarter each, I suppose. But if you're looking at percentages, this is the idea of a ratio of the chance of you getting infected. That's got a real important element. And, you know, the government are using it. The chief medical officers are talking about it. So they will then be able to consume that information when it's in the media and the newspaper and really understand it. So yeah, I think that's a great point, Daisy. Thank you for that.
Yeah. Excellent. Thank you. I think that's covering the questions and comments which have arisen. Thank you all for links which have been really helpful to have included as we've gone through this session. Sally, did you want to conclude?
Well, I think there's a couple of things. One is really about next steps. I know, Richard, you've got a professional learning community that perhaps people could join. Would that be correct? Or we could think about doing another session on another topic, but linked to STEM and the goals.
Yeah, this is predominantly for the teachers in Scotland. Well, it's entirely for the teachers in Scotland, but I've been working with a colleague on a small professional learning community for primary-based teachers, and we're using Glow, which is the national intranet. And at the moment, there are professional learning communities set up within Glow which are on subject levels. So there's a STEM group, and there's a language and maths groups and things like that, which are led by the sort of national advisors. We just wondered if there would be perhaps a desire to get involved in something like that, or whether we could offer repeat sessions. So maybe if people fed back to Sally possibly on that, or you can find me on the University of Dundee website, and some of you know me anyway. So you could drop me an email if you were interested in carrying this sort of thing on, because we've run professional learning before and CPD sessions before face to face, but what we've the opportunity to do now is do this hybrid learning, whereby we could run a session in person in Dundee or somewhere, but also set a camera up quite easily, and we could stream that live to people that wanted to access it wherever they were in the country or in the world even. So if people are interested in that, then I'd be more than happy to do that.
Maybe we could get just a quick show of thumbs ups from the reaction buttons, so that we could see if folk would be up for something like that. Yep.
Forest of thumbs.
Great. Okay, yes, there's definitely interest for that. Okay, thanks. So there's just a couple of final slides actually, Claire. I don't know if you're able to go back to sharing the screen. I think quite a lot of the things that I was going to flag up or talk about have already been mentioned in the chat box, and links have been put in.
Yeah.
And certainly we can send things out by email to those of you. I think we've probably got everybody's email addresses by now. So the last few slides were really just flagging up practical action. I know Julie has already talked about the newsletter from Practical Action. If you just go onto the Practical Action website, basically there's an absolute wealth of resources and activities, and it's fairly self-explanatory to find what you're looking for. If we could move on to the Stride, could you put up the Stride slide, Claire? Thanks. Okay, so Stride magazine is an online quarterly global citizenship magazine for teachers, and it's absolutely fabulous. It costs you nothing. You can sign up to get it into your inbox 4 times a year. It's got features, it's got news from schools, it's got activities, loads of really good stuff. So I would thoroughly recommend that. Now, Julie did mention a couple of times some resources actually. I'm just going to hold up, I don't know if you can see, if you can whisk your screen along, you'll be able to see the Oxfam guide that was mentioned about the Sustainable Development Goals, in-depth information about them from Oxfam. And also, Julie had referred to ScotDec resources, and there's a primary and a secondary version of Explore the Global Goals on their website. And the final slide really just has details of ourselves, how to find us, our email address and our website. And please like us on Facebook and follow us on Twitter.
And just one other thing, we've popped a link into the chat with a survey. Could you please complete that before you go today? We really need this information. Just it's quite light touch, but we need this for our funders. So if you could please complete the survey that we've popped into chat, that would be fabulous. Thank you.
And what I'll do as well, everybody, is I'll send the PowerPoint on to the bit that I covered with the links to the various things I mentioned, and then Sally and Claire can forward it on to you all.
Thanks, Richard.
So we're actually ahead of time, despite our little technological problems. It's only 10 to 6, folks.
Well, if you don't mind, Sally, if people want to leave, I mean, when I've done some of these online teaching sessions, if people want to hang around and turn the mics on and ask us any specific questions, I'd be more than happy to do that for 5 or 10 minutes or so. But if not, people feel free to disappear.